Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Community Action Agency's 56th Annual Luncheon. This year, it's virtual. I'm Curtis Fuller, and I am honored to be here with you today. We recognize that this public health crisis is a challenging time for everyone in our area. And organizations like your Community Action Agency have gone above and beyond to continue to serve the Cincinnati area, building bridges that lead to opportunity. Now, throughout this program, you'll hear about the impact CAA is having right here in our community. We'll have a conversation with Dr. Bernice King and honor community partners who have supported CAA this year. All of this could not be possible without the support of our event sponsors. And now we're going to hear from our presenting sponsor, Fifth Third Bank.
Good afternoon. I pray that your families are safe. My name is Royce Sutton. I am the Community and Economic Development Market Manager for Fifth Third Bank, right here in Cincinnati. We are a sponsor for this event, but we also are a partner with CAA. CAA is a vital organization that provides everything from childcare to workforce development programs. All these programs are possible because you have an expert team at CAA that really cares about families. And I'd like to say thank you for every single staff member on the CAA team, its board members, and its leadership for making these things possible. Approximately 4.5 years ago, Fifth Third Bank made a $32 billion commitment to its communities to elevate the aspirations for low to moderate income families in the areas of affordable housing, small business, and financial stability. And I'm proud to report today that we are clearly on our way to surpass the $32 billion commitment. As well, during this COVID-19 pandemic, Fifth Third Bank committed well over $1 million right here in the Cincinnati community to over 29 organizations who are doing everything from providing PPE equipment to providing technology, programs for children and adults, but also providing rental assistance for families. These are the kind of things that elevate our community. These are the things that make an impact. These are the things that make a community a community. CAA knows this extremely well, and we thank you for the partnership. We thank you for your work. Continue to make a difference here in our community. We appreciate it, and we thank you for this opportunity to share in this great luncheon. Have a great day.
Thank you, Royce. We want to take a moment now to thank all of today's event sponsors. Presenting sponsor, Fifth Third Bank, Platinum, TechSoft Systems, Union Savings Bank, and Guardian Savings Bank. Our gold sponsor, Flawless Cleaning, ITA Audio Visual Solutions. Our silver sponsor, McGowan Braybender, Teaching Strategies, Xavier University, United Healthcare, Corinthian Baptist Church, Dinsmore Shoal, Oswald Company, and Napier Trucking. And our nonprofit sponsor is Talbert House. With the support of our sponsors, volunteers, and community leaders, CAA is able to do great work that gives individuals and families hope. Your support also helps their work. Now, if you would like to support CAA, you can do so anytime during this virtual luncheon by texting CAA56 to 202-858-1233. Your donation will greatly impact and expand the services CAA can provide to all of your neighbors. And now, let's take a moment to hear from Chandra Matthews Smith, Chair of the CAA Board of Directors. Thank you, Royce. We want to take a moment now to thank all of.
Thank you, Curtis, and thank you to everyone who has joined us today. 2020 has been a year of uncertainty and discomfort. As I reflect upon the year, I think about the many families who have reached out to CAA for assistance. I think about the many ways that CAA staff have come together to rethink programs and services in order to uplift our clients during this time. I think of all of the partnerships that have been formed and how together we are building a bridge to opportunity. Our Head Start program closed its doors due to COVID-19, but they didn't stop teaching. We continue to make sure that our families were provided the support they needed so that our children received step up to quality care. 636 families received virtual learning kits. 4,600 diapers were collected in our diaper drive. 12,000 people viewed our Take Time Out Tuesday Facebook Live discussions. And thanks to the Head Start Policy Council and our Reader Squad, 27 children books have been read for Wednesday night story time on our Facebook page. And because of this, families like Kimberly Clark and her family continue to thrive in the midst of this pandemic.
I can keep you here all day, but long story short, I helped my grandkids. They were kind of behind, having trouble doing a lot of things that they had to do. And Head Start, they work with them. The teachers really work with them. They work very hard with them to get them ready, set up for kindergarten. The patience that they had with me and the help, the gratitude that they have showed me throughout the time that me and my grandkids have been, where they were attending the school. And they just been very, again, patient with me and very helpful with resources and helping me seek out places that I can go to get help. Going back to school was I'm 52, sorry telling my age, but going back to school was very scary to me. And when I got in the group with all the people, it was very challenging for me, but they became my family, and due to the COVID, we all had to split up. So we've been keeping in touch on the internet and online, emailing, and that's how I've been doing my classes. And that's the Child Development Associate's degree. So it really inspired me to do that because I see how well they was doing with my grandkids and how they work with them, and it made me want to be a part of that family. Once I have my CDAs, I plan to go to work and help out at the daycare centers, the Head Start, preschool, because they really need people to care for them right now. So that's really what my heart is at. So that's what I want to do. Without Head Start, I don't know where me and my grandkids would be right now. They taught them a lot. It's just an awesome experience for us.
CAA recognized how important career training is and the need to provide opportunities in industries that are growing and provide families long-lasting stability. After receiving a grant from Verizon Wireless, CAA was able to create a TechWorks program and give training in the field of technology. The trainings that are held virtually is giving families like the Adkins a new outlook on the future.
I applied to the TechWorks program. This was part of the pandemic that we're in right now as a way to pivot. So it was additional skill set for me to add to the arsenal that I already have.
I applied to the tech program basically for the same reasons as my wife, just to add to my resume, and be a resume builder.
The program has been going great. We've had some challenges based upon the curriculum and the time frame, but we were able to go back to the drawing board with the coordinator, and they've expanded the program. Right now, initially the program was supposed to be for the 5 weeks. Typically, when you go for a certification of that magnitude, a normal program is anywhere from 10 to 12 weeks for certification. However, this was an accelerated course, so we're in the 6th week, I believe.
Yes,
now.
yes,
yeah,
and we just
it's been extended.
Right, and we just finished our final assessment yesterday. We're looking forward to the next half of the course as far as Core 2 is concerned.
Working with the CAA staff, they have been wonderful. So we definitely have to shout out our coordinator, which is Shante Hodge,
and Kristen Sims,
Kristen
and then
Sims.
our awesome and phenomenal teacher, Sequoia Harlan.
Yes.
Households in Cincinnati have been impacted by the pandemic. There are many people who have reached out to CAA for the first time and individuals who found themselves worried about how to make ends meet. Since COVID-19, we expanded our food pantry, serving 3,500 households since the beginning of March. CAA has helped 591 individuals with rent and utility assistance, and over 8,000 through the Home Energy Assistance Program. Because of this, we have been able to build that bridge for people like Vanessa Jackson.
Well, with the COVID-19 pandemic going on, my job had furloughed a few people, and luckily I wasn't one of them, but it put an impact on as far as our payment, as far as how we got paid, and our overtime had got cut out, so I wasn't making as much money as I would have, so I needed a little help with like my gas and electric. And my experience working with CAA was great. It was actually a great thing. They seemed like some caring people, and they were very concerned about what was going on with me and helping me get the matter situated.
So many lives have been touched, but there is still so much work to be done. I want to say thank you to our donors, thank you to our supporters, our volunteers, and a special thank you to the dedicated staff who work to make sure that we are helping people cross that bridge to opportunity.
Thank you, Chandra, for your great leadership. And now it is my honor to present the fearless leader of your community action agency, CEO and President, Mark Lawson.
Mark, this has been a difficult year for everyone with the COVID-19 pandemic. Tell me how this has been for Community Action Agency.
With the pandemic, we had so many folks in need before the pandemic started, and before it punched us squarely in the face, knocked us on our feet, off of our feet, and but more importantly, it's really affected the clients that we see, and we've had so many more folks coming to us for help that have ever come before, numbering in the thousands just for rental assistance alone, for example, and folks that have not come to us before or any other social service agency. So the newly poor, in a way. We saw this a lot after the Great Recession. That was a devastating time, and I would say this is 100 times worse with new folks coming to us. And so we've had to pivot ourselves because of the pandemic and work remotely since March to be safe for our staff and for our families that we help. And so that's been difficult, but we have ramped up technology-wise. Our staff has been amazing on how to switch and learn how to work from home and get cell phones and get laptops and interact with our clients online and over the phone. And we've done that in numerous ways, whether it's emergency assistance and connecting with folks online with online applications and talking to them by phone, or with Head Start, with our early education. As we've talked about before, online education is not ideal for anyone, and it is especially not ideal for 0 to 5-year-olds. But we're doing the best we can, and our staff put together these learning kits, treasure boxes full of wonderful learning materials for the different age groups, and sent those to the families, dropped them off at their door, and then we engaged with those kids and their moms and dads over the phone and online, and we've done Facebook Live events. And one other thing that we started back in the fall was these food kits that we're providing for pickup service. So curbside Head Start families can come by and pick up a box of food for the week, 3 meals for 4 days with recipes, nutritious meals. And that's been wonderful for the kids. We were lucky enough, we did reopen Head Start October 12th. But we've already had to shut down one of our main sites because one of our teachers contracted COVID. And now that we're turning purple, who knows where we're going to be even in the next day or so with our Head Start sites. But just one last thing about the staff, how the pandemic has affected us. It's really hit the CAA family very hard. 80% of our staff are Black Americans, and we've had up to probably about 10 folks now who have contracted COVID and are in various stages of health. And many of our staff have lost close family members. And our heart goes out to all of those staff members. But that's just a little bit about how difficult it's been and how we've tried to pivot and help as many folks as we can.
For all of us in the community, I think the one thing we've learned, Mark, is the importance of CAA and many lifeline organizations in our community, because this year, if ever, CAA has been needed more than ever before. And I say this with all sincerity, you guys have really risen to the occasion to be that lifeline for so many people. And I would imagine you've recognized that.
I have. Well, thanks for saying that. We all appreciate that, Curtis. It has, we are on the front lines, and we've had to come up with a lot of new ideas on how to help folks. And our traditional workforce development, 8 to 12 weeks of training for construction, we're still doing that. We're still doing commercial driver's license training. But in looking through our more than 4,000 folks in line for rental assistance, we have found so many folks that have lost jobs through no fault of their own, who are looking for work and have skills. And so we've designed this rapid reemployment initiative with a bunch of great partners in the area, with the idea that folks don't have the time to go through a 10-week training right now, that they need to turn right around, fix their resume, tweak some of their skills, and get back on their feet and employed right away. So that's just an example of how we've kind of changed what we normally do. We've moved a lot of folks from workforce development over to our emergency services because there's such a great need just for rent assistance, mortgage assistance, water, sewer assistance. The need is just great, and we have to address it.
And as I thank you, I know that finally you want to thank people in the community who have stepped up to help you. So it's shown that the community can help. You can help the community. That has been the blessing, if you will, that's come out of this nightmare of a year.
That's exactly right. The community has stepped up to help us help others. And so, we have some money from the county and from the federal government that has a lot of restrictions, and the deadline to spend by the end of the year, which hopefully might get extended. But beyond that, we've had a lot of private donations, a lot of folks stepping up in the community, a lot of businesses, Humana, AT&T have stepped up with unrestricted funds to help us be creative with those funds and help folks in different ways. And of course, Fifth Third Bank has been the sponsor of this luncheon for so long. And we're so grateful to them and their support, and to all the sponsors that have stepped up in this odd virtual year for a luncheon that we're having. But we need that money, and the more flexible and without the tight deadlines that the CARES money gives us, we need that badly.
Congratulations again on year 56. And this is a great event. It's a little different, albeit virtual, but thank you for everything you're doing, and much continued success to Community Action Agency.
Thank you so much, Curtis, and thank you for all you do. We appreciate you.
I've been honored to be a part of this event for many years, and it is my pleasure now to present our Bridge Builder Awards. Bridge builders are individuals and partners who have helped us build our community and grow our families. Our first Bridge Builder Award goes to the Welcome Project for continuously supporting CAA's mobile food pantry every second Tuesday of the month, providing space and volunteers to serve the Camp Washington neighborhood.
We're located in Camp Washington, so they're our primary community, focused on the neighbors there, but also we work with a lot of partner organizations and often do programs outside of Camp Washington throughout the city. We work with artists a lot, so they're definitely a community focus group. And then the Welcome Project is focused on immigrant and refugees in Cincinnati. So the Welcome Project started out as a class for immigrants and refugees, an art program, and it quickly expanded into having its own storefront where we could foster entrepreneurship and friendships and language learning in immigrants and refugees throughout Cincinnati. And now it has a produce market, and we sell and give out shelf-stable goods as well as produce and frozen goods. Yeah, so our partnership with Community Action Agency is mostly through the Welcome Project because of the market there and the food venue. And so we do the produce pop-ups every second Tuesday of the month through the Welcome Project. So we're able to offer our neighborhood fresh groceries, and also working with Myra from CAA, just helping connect us to the immigrant population and help them where there's need. I think, Wave Pool has been really responsive to the COVID epidemic and transitioning really rapidly. As I mentioned, we're a small organization, so we're pretty agile, and I think that this year has kind of proven that these small organizations are sometimes more adept at tackling big problems. I mean, I think it's so amazing to be recognized for something like this. It's not often that that we're seen for the work we're doing. So we're very much like a feet on the ground, small organization. So it's really amazing to be recognized.
Thank you to the Welcome Project for serving our immigrant community and providing a safe and creative space over in Camp Washington. The next Bridge Builder Award goes to Union Savings Bank and Guardian Savings Bank. Time and time again, when CAA's Head Start families needed additional support, these institutions provided additional support from diapers to backpacks. They are truly helping us build bridges.
So certainly we have been delighted to be able to support CAA in terms of the diaper program as well as providing backpacks for your Head Start program. But more importantly, we want to keep on growing our partnership to support in the future home ownership and financial education for your employees as well as your clients. We know, like you all, that we're only as strong as our neighborhoods are. At Union and Guardian Savings Bank, what is essential for us is to ensure that we are engaged in the communities where our employees and our clients come from. And so without a doubt, across Cincinnati, across Hamilton County, we know that our neighborhoods are strong when we are volunteering and giving back in our communities. CAA has a reputation for really helping individuals from the cradle to their careers. And so we know that that type of mission is a mission that we want to align with and collaboratively help to strengthen our communities further. Well, first of all, we are honored and just joyed that this type of recognition by CAA has come our way. But most importantly, we really are excited that we're able to give and able to support and be a partner with an organization like CAA. And to be honored as a bridge builder means a lot to us, because we see that without a doubt, it's these type of reciprocal partnerships that build bridges. So just like CAA is a bridge builder in our neighborhoods, Union and Guardian Savings Bank wants to be a bridge builder. So we're honored for this opportunity for the 2020 Bridge Builder Award.
Thank you, Union Savings Bank and Guardian Savings Bank, for humbly serving our Head Start children and families. You know, each year, CAA recognizes a board member for their dedication and commitment to our mission of helping families from cradle to career. I welcome Maura Weir, CAA board member and president and CEO of Your United Way of Greater Cincinnati, to help me present this year's award.
She is passionate about the community. She has a love for the community. She has a love for making sure that everybody has access to equal opportunities. She is driven, she is kind, she's generous, and she demonstrates leadership both inside the building and outside. I mean, she's always working on behalf of the community. No matter whether she's at the office or out in the community or even in her home, she's continually advocating on behalf of families and children. That's been her whole career. She's passionate about that. She's passionate about making sure that everybody has access across the region and that nobody gets left behind. We go way back, and she has been a friend, a colleague, a teacher, a mentor. I have learned so much from her, but we work so well together, and she makes work fun and always can, when things are difficult sometimes, and stressful, she seems to always have the ability to make us all laugh.
I'd like to congratulate Chandra Matthews-Smith on being the 2020 honoree of the David Crowley Board Award. Now, our final award is the Theodore M. Berry Award, given to an individual who has dedicated their life to social change. And this year, we are honoring Lydia Morgan, founder and organizer for the Cincinnati Juneteenth celebration.
I started reading about the Juneteenth festival, and I talked to all my friends, and I'm going, did you know? Actually, people in this country celebrate the end of slavery. Did you know that? I've never known anybody to celebrate the end of slavery, and it was like this overwhelming happiness, It was like being at a family reunion when you hadn't seen people for years, and, it was really, really neat. The thing that I think everyone should recognize about Juneteenth is that it's not just a holiday for Black people, because Black people did not own slavery. This country owned slavery. One of our missions is to make people aware of the legacy of slavery. And it's playing out every day in our country. Sometimes we see it, and sometimes we don't see it. My gosh, I was surprised and happy that this organization saw fit to honor Juneteenth that way, because as I've said, we've been working with Juneteenth. This will be our 34th year. This summer will be our 34th festival. And there are those of us who just think there's nothing, Juneteenth is the best thing since sliced bread, and that's the way it goes. But then to have other people honor Juneteenth in the way that this group has, it's exciting. It makes me feel like other people are beginning to understand why it's important, because more people are beginning to understand the significance of it and the importance of celebrating it and the importance of learning about it. I think, hopefully it will be taught as a part of school history in the schools, and it's not just an afterthought or a no thought. Because I know when I was in school, I didn't learn a thing about Juneteenth. I didn't learn a thing about Tuskegee Airmen. None of these things that are so important to African American life were a part of what we learned in school. But now I'm hoping that we can get more of all of that stuff involved in schools, involved with education of all children, so that we can all learn how this country actually came together.
Well, thank you, Lydia, for your leadership and dedication to racial justice right here in our community. Now we ask you to help friends and neighbors by texting CAA 56 to 202-858-1233. Chances are you know someone who has needed the services provided by Community Action Agency, and no gift is too small. Now I have the privilege of speaking with Dr. Bernice King. Dr. King is a global thought leader, orator, peace advocate, and chief executive officer of the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change. The King Center, which was founded by her mother, Coretta Scott King, back in 1968. From this position, the same once held by her mother, Dr. King continues her efforts to advance her parents' legacy of nonviolence, which Dr. King has now rebranded as Nonviolence 365. Through her work at the King Center, Dr. King educates young people and adults about the nonviolent principles modeled by her parents. So please welcome Dr. Bernice King.
It's obvious that we should start with the issue of this pandemic. It has everyone in a crisis mode. Talk a little bit about the pandemic and what people are dealing with and how you've been responding to this.
Well, obviously, like everyone else, it's been a major transition, trying to find a new sense of normal and not being able to spend time with people in person as much as you would like. And so I think it's really readjusting your frame of mind and, creating a vision for how you are going to live amidst this pandemic and the things that you are determined to still press toward in spite of the pandemic. I want to caution that people don't surrender to this notion that this is it and that there will be no end to this. I think there will be. We don't know when the end will be, but it should not deter us from understanding what our end game is, because we can find new and creative and innovative ways to still fulfill those end games. I've discovered that many people have used this time to become more creative. Our creative juices get to flowing in this environment. And I know that I've been able to do a little bit more introspection and think about some of the things that I have not done that I needed to do and that I will be doing moving forward, that in spite of the pandemic, thank God for technology, we can still do these kind of interactive things. And so the end game, has to be your focus, because there's a lot of noise. There's a lot, as always, of distractions. Even with the pandemic, there's still distractions. And so you have to kind of stay focused. And more importantly, for me, I've had to do a lot of praying, meditating, reflecting, being quiet. It is okay to be quiet. Find quiet spaces. I know it's much more difficult for people who are single parents now because they're having to essentially semi-homeschool their children, and they don't have carved out space to have time to themselves. But if they can steal those moments, I suggest that they do it and use it as a time of quietness, because we can't neglect ourselves in the midst of anything. The Bible always reminds us as a Christian, I always rely upon the word of God that, what good is it to gain the whole world and lose your own soul? So it's always important that during this time, we still do not neglect ourselves in the process.
Knowing that I was going to talk to you, I had to go back and look at your book, Hard Questions, Hard Answers. And it was interesting in there, you have a part where it almost sounds like you were describing the year 2020, because you talked about dealing with this midnight hour. And if there was a midnight hour, it's 2020. The hope is, and I think the positive that you brought out is that we should not be paralyzed during this moment. I think that's what you were saying.
Yeah, that's essentially what I'm saying. The beauty is the way that God created us is that we have so many cells in our brain, and most of them are undeveloped. So, during this time, you develop other parts of your brain essentially, because you're forced into this place that's a little bit different than you're daily accustomed to, your habit and your pattern. And so that's the beauty of the ability for us to survive. I mean, I remember speaking to my former pastor, whose daughter a few years ago had committed suicide, and how he just, at that time, before we got to this pandemic, he was saying, I'm just having to learn how to create a new normal. And we can do it. It's not easy, but it's doable. And I would say to anyone, don't isolate yourself. Have networks of friends and supporters, yet have that quiet time where you just have to push away from all of that to create a sense of balance.
It goes without saying, I would have to ask, when you talk about new normal, I think of your family, I think of you, and how you've had to create this new normal constantly since child. I mean, losing your dad, losing your grandmother, recently,
uncle,
obviously your mom, your
and my uncle,
sister,
a year,
and your uncle.
a year and a half after my father.
That's right. You have been an example of resiliency in creating this new normal that really has helped the rest of us. I don't know if you truly comprehend how you have helped people like me and other people understand that you can press on through those difficult times. So I know you're asked that all the time, but just explain to people how you've been able to press on.
It's two things, really. It's my strong relationship, I say, with the Holy Spirit, because he helps me to navigate these tough times, and keeps me connected to the Word of God, keeps me connected to the Godhead, and keeps me sane. When I'm in groups and people will say, "What are you grateful for?" I always say, I'm grateful for sanity. People just don't understand that having your sanity is so critical. If you don't have that, you have nothing. And so that relationship. Secondly, honestly, I had a great example. My mom, I watched her, from a child up until the time she passed away. And interestingly enough, I was with her when she passed in Mexico. So I got the benefit of even watching how she handled death, which seems strange to say, but my mother was always a graceful woman. And she even handled that journey in a graceful way. And so it gave me this inner strength by seeing that example, having the benefit of being close to it. And I use that all the time in my mind. We used to say, what would Jesus do? In the back of my mind, I would think, what would my mother do? And sometimes it's just natural in me because we spent so much time together. It's almost second nature that I respond in ways that she responded. She taught us early on when my father passed, but we went through a journey. I went through my journey. It was not an easy journey. I mean, I was angry. And if I might use this word, I was pissed off. I wanted to hurt some people. I ended up going in a season of hating white people, especially white males. And yet that strong presence in my life and those strong teachings that she gave us, not just through her mouth, but through her very life, is what kind of pulled me in and stabilized me and pushed me to where I am today. And so, use those relationships. We all have them. If you don't have the fortunate pleasure of having your parents at a young age growing up, you know, there are other adults around you. Use their life as something to draw upon, the examples that they set. You know, as you go through the rest of your life, rely strongly on your faith. You know, lean on your friends, which I do. And I try not to hold too much in. You know, a lot of people like to keep stuff inside of themselves and not talk, not share. And you know, I always say it's more room out than in. And that's what I try to practice. And you know, you have to have people who love you, understand you, and allow you that space and room to go through those processes, because it's not easy. I mean, yes, we faced a lot of tragedy in our family. In fact, I'm sitting here today, and my cousin, who's a minister as well, passed this morning, and I got the call. And so, you know, I'm processing through that as we speak. But, you know, I knew I had to do this. I have something else to do tomorrow. And you stand in the strength of that. My mother, you know, wow, she went to Memphis the day before my father's homegoing and led that march. So this is what, you know, this is kind of, I guess you would say, I wouldn't say it's in my blood, but it's in my family. You know, we're kind of tough people, but we're also tender as well.
Yeah, and I know you are told many times how much you are loved, your family is loved, but every time I'm around you, or you know, your brother, and when your sister was alive, I always say how thankful we are to your family. Your family is royalty. I really believe that, and thank you. Hey, this summer, we've had these conversations, or really this past summer and into the fall now. We've had this conversation about race, and obviously George Floyd and many other incidents. Breonna Taylor also. I know that you've been a strong voice on this issue. Talk a little bit about how we should deal with this whole issue of race and violence that we see and the loss of life, people like George Floyd.
Well, the first thing is, I think we have to deal with it head on. And what I mean by that is, we have so often wanted to move on when things like this occur to the next thing. You know, there's a moment in time that we allow it to have its way in our life, and we just kind of, you know, move on as if these are events of life that occur, without really stepping back and assessing, you know, what are the learning lessons here? What are the things that we need to adjust, shift, and change? And this time, thank the Lord, people have not just moved on. And I give a lot of credit to the banner, not speaking of a specific organization, because there are many people who fit under that banner of Black Lives Matter that have different organizational names. But I give credit to those individuals, those activists, mostly those that are in the millennial generation and younger, who have refused to let us move on, who say, no, you know, we have been dealing with this since the founding of this nation, and we're not going to let us continue to perpetuate this false narrative, this way of living, and these systemic problems. And this time, we're going to go deep. We're going to literally, you know, have to unravel our country. We use the language deconstruct and reconstruct, because we were built on a faulty foundation. You know, we were founded, you know, we talk about these great ideals, but they were ideals that many of the people who helped to develop did not have us as Black people being respected as people, as human beings, as full and complete and equal human beings. Did not respect women that way. And so if you build on that kind of foundation, you have to rebuild. And that's scary. That's uncomfortable. But it is necessary, because if we don't do the hard work now, we'll continue to see more intensity. In fact, my father said in his book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos of Community, that if we don't make justice a priority, social tension will grow and turbulence in the streets will persist. Now, speaking of being 2020, he wrote this in 67, and it is so true, because that's what you hear the cry of over the past almost 10 years. No justice, no peace. And because there's no justice, then you have this social tension that's becoming more intense, and you have this turbulence in the streets that continues to persist. And so we've got to do the hard work in our individual lives. We got to assess things. In our organizational and corporate lives, I think organizations and corporations have the hard work of really peeling back and looking at where there's systemic racism in their policies, in their practices, in their delivery, and being very honest and frank. This is the time to be truthful. You know, Brian Stevenson has been doing a lot of work calling for, and I know years ago, my family actually visited President Clinton calling for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission modeled along South Africa. And I guess our nation, or that president at the time, wasn't ready for it. And so here we are, you know, a few years, probably almost 20 years later, where we have no choice but to face the truth. And in facing the truth, we have to reshape these narratives from our educational system. You know, what we're teaching in schools, we got to recreate some things in our curriculum. And that's going to take a lot of work. We've got to reassess, you know, our priorities in corporate America, because corporate America is who it is today because of slaves, frankly. And we've got to go in and do the difficult work. And I know some of them have been doing some of that work, but there has to be an ongoing long-term commitment, because it's not going to all happen overnight. And it's more than just giving money. You got to change the dynamics of the inner working of the environment and the policies, as I said, and the practices. Most of our boardrooms are still very white male dominated. That has to change. I don't think personally it should take years to do that particular thing, because people can consciously decide, I will step down to allow, because it's not the same as labor laws in the same way, I will step down to allow the presence of more Blacks. And I'm being intentional about saying Blacks, because I do think that if our nation is going to move forward, we have to deal with the truth that in every category, the data is there, that Blacks are last.
As you talk about what has been revealed somewhat, I think of organizations like Community Action Agency. We've seen the strength of these lifeline organizations that have held things together through this pandemic. But it's also a reminder that people have to support them. They have to be there, not just when the pandemic is occurring, they have to be there all the time.
Yeah, people have to be there all the time, but the hard questions we have to ask in the whole nonprofit world is, are we willing to work ourselves out of a job? Because even after 50, almost a little more than 50 years, what has changed in the area of poverty in terms of systemically, in terms of the numbers? The numbers have not changed that much, unfortunately. So I think there has to be personal assessment as to whether what we are doing is working. And that's a mirror. That's looking in a mirror. That's being honest. That's, again, identifying if there are any systems in place, any programs in place that are perpetuating poverty and racism. And then we have to describe those things, and then we have to dismantle, and then we have to rebuild. And again, this takes a lot of work. My father, and I want to share something, if you don't mind, because I think it's so important. Again, because 52, 53, 54 years ago, he shared this in his Where Do We Go From Here book. He obviously talked about many of these things because he called for a poor people's campaign, as we know, shortly before his assassination. He was working toward that and started really dealing with the issue of economic injustice. It wasn't something he awakened to, so I want to set the record straight on that, because early in his life, even before the movement started, he had identified what he called the inseparable twins of racial and economic injustice. He saw them being inseparable. But yet he was a systematic thinker, and he approached things systematically. And so that's why later in his life, the economic piece began to be, a really heavy focus. And that's another conversation. But he said this in his book. He said, he was talking about all of the different approaches to poverty, that we approach it from the premise that it is a consequence of these multiple evils, whether you're talking about lack of education, restrictive job opportunities, poor housing, etc. And he said, while none of the remedies to that in itself is unsound, all have a fatal disadvantage. The programs have never proceeded on a coordinated basis or at a similar rate of development. And then he went on to conclude, and some I want to raise, because of the city, I don't know why the city is slipping me now, but the mayor of Stockton, California, has been on a campaign about the universal basic income. And he got the inspiration from my father. And this is what my father, he said, "I'm now convinced that the simplest approach will prove to be the most effective. The solution to poverty is to abolish it directly by a now widely discussed measure, the guaranteed income." So before my father was assassinated, he was going to Washington in that Poor People's Campaign to talk about a livable wage. Minimum wage is one thing, but we need livable wages, because when people have livable wages, some of these conditions that we ascribe to poverty can be addressed by those individuals. They have greater opportunity and access because now they have the money in their pocket. So going to the mayor of Stockton, California, he did a pilot where he identified a certain segment of his population, gave $500 a month to them, and people were concerned that's crazy, outlandish, all of that. Yet these young people, they're very creative and innovative and courageous. And he did it, and 98%, 99% of those people utilized those funds for fundamental needs like utilities, like rent. And so we see that the direct solution is getting income and full employment in place. So we have to collectively coordinate and work towards this notion of a universal basic income and stop thinking in an old frame of mind, because that's the place where we've been comfortable. The pandemic is here, and it's designed at this point to move us out of familiarity and to push us into places that are new and different and may feel a little uncomfortable and uncertain, but necessary. We got to make a necessary shift in this time if we're going to change these systemic problems. And you know, they say, if we keep doing the same thing, we all know that saying, get the same results. We're insane. So God just allowed the pandemic to stop the insanity so that we could get our sanity back together and really start being more creative and courageous in solutions to issues like poverty.
We're just a few days removed from a big election. I think you tweeted out that elections have consequences.
They do.
And as we're just a couple of days, and thank God we've had the huge turnout in early elections, early voting. But if people need to be reminded of the significance, we're 63 years removed from when your dad gave us the ballot speech at the Lincoln Memorial. Many people think the first time he spoke at the Lincoln Memorial was
63, right?
But it was 57 when he was there commemorating Brown versus Board, 3-year anniversary of Brown versus Board. But he focused that time to talk about give us the ballot and how significant that is. And here we are now 63 years removed.
And we're still talking about give us the ballot because of all of these voter suppression issues that are happening, these efforts that are happening all across this nation. Yeah.
I know time is short. I could talk to you for days. You're so fascinating. I will leave with this. Also from your book, I noticed that you made a reference to a song that George Benson wrote, who I grew up a few blocks from George Benson in Pittsburgh. And the song is Everything Must Change.
Yeah.
And I think you described in your book how the song reminds us that the one thing that we know for sure is that things will change. Leave us with some perspective about really hope, because people still need a lot of hope in this time when, for many of them, they can't see the change, but it's coming.
Well, you know what? Gandhi talked about being the change you want to see in the world, and that still holds true. I think too often we look first outward for that hope and for that change. And I think sometimes we need to look within. We need to understand that none of us is here by accident. It is by divine design. In fact, I always say to people that you were born to answer a question or to solve a problem. And you have to look within yourself to think about what is that problem that I'm placed on this earth to solve. You don't have to be Martin Luther King Jr., you know, a major leader, a major force like that. You don't have to have a humongous platform like some people have even on social media. But what you do have to have is an identification of what it is that I'm here to solve, what it is I'm here to impact, what it is I'm here to make a difference in, and recognize that there are those before you that have done that. And even when we're no longer here, there'll be those after us who will do exactly that. That, first of all, gives me hope, because even when it gets so dark and dim, I recognize that there were generations of people before me that faced perhaps even darker times than I'm currently and we currently are facing. And they found a way within their own strength and stamina and courage and sense of purpose to press forward, to make whatever changes that they needed to make. Many of them, some of them working perhaps individually, but many working collectively and in a coordinated fashion. And so know that the change starts within you first. And the hope is that you're here. And as long as you're here, you can make a difference. And that there are others that are out there that are making a difference. And there are organizations that are out there, like the Community Action Agency. And when your purpose aligns with all of these different efforts, and I won't say yours aligns with every effort, but your purpose aligns with the organizational efforts of some entity. Align yourself with that organization, support it, join it, volunteer for it. You know, everybody doesn't have to be the hero. Everybody doesn't have to create a new and different organization. All we have to do is recognize that there's great work being done. I'm a great person and I can connect with that great work and help to bolster it. If we only understood that in this nation, we could do so much more than we're already doing. We can make more than the incremental changes we are making, because the more entities that we create, we dilute our strength, because now we're saturated. And now, instead of truly being able to work in a synergistic and a coordinated fashion, you end up in this kind of subtle competitive mode, because now corporations, you know, they're posturing to give to different organizations, and you're posturing to get your funding for your program. And the more of that happens, you get 50,000 a little broken off for you, a little bit more broken off for somebody else, and we can have a greater effort if we would just step back and really recognize that there's a lot of good stuff going on in this country. And we just need to figure out how to pull together more. So my mother said this. She said, struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it in every generation. Now, I never heard those words, and I never was familiar with those words until she passed. And I was troubled because I kept asking, why do we keep coming back to these same places over and over again? And when I heard her words, I recognized that we're coming back because we believe we got to reinvent a wheel. We keep coming back because we believe that it's somebody else's responsibility, and we become apathetic. We become indifferent. And yet there is this generational call to the freedom struggle. Every generation on the face of this earth is called to that freedom struggle. An individual seems to want to co-opt, but the generation nonetheless is called. And you can't defer the assignment. So you might as well step up to the plate and recognize, I'm here. I might as well join in and get connected. And then step into what my father said, which is so important today like never before. And he said that the nettlesome task is to organize our strength into compelling power, so that those in power cannot elude our demands. That's the Nehemiah spirit. Nehemiah looked at those in chapter 4 of Nehemiah. I think it's around the 17th to the 19th verse. Look at here. The work is extensive. Community Action Agency, King Center, NAACP, Urban League. The work is extensive. Black Lives Matter, the work is Color of Change, the work is extensive. Equal Justice Initiative, the work is extensive. And we're widely separated on the wall because we're all working and doing what we got to do. You're doing what you got to do in your local community organization, doing what you got to do right now in your family. But when you hear the sound of the trumpet, and ironically, we've had a president named Trump without the E.T. E.T. what is estimated time? Now is the time for us to pull together. Because that Nehemiah said, if you hear that sound, come hither and our God will fight for us. God shows up in our awesome ability as humans to think, to create, to make a difference. He shows up and gives us the super on our natural. And that's when you begin to see these substantial, monumental changes. That's what happened in the 50s and 60s. Those are some powerful men and women. But it was when they came coordinatedly, hear the word coordinated, collective, collaborative, and they worked systematically and strategically, that the power of God was unleashed and did what they could not do individually or collectively without that presence, because there's power in oneness. And that's my message to you.
Dr. King, thank you. Thank you for that message. Thank you for this time. I know on behalf of Community Action Agency and really everyone in the city of Cincinnati, we thank you for being a part of this event. But we also thank you for staying on the front line, being a strong voice. And anytime you are in the area of Cincinnati, you are always welcome here. So God bless you. We will
bless you
for you and your family for your loss. And we will keep you in prayer. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, it has been an honor to spend the past hour with you today, and I am moved by what a giving community we have right here in Cincinnati. You can still give by texting CAA 56 to 202-858-1233. From your Community Action Agency, we thank you for joining us. I'm Curtis Fuller. Have a great day.